Hello, hello. Hi, everyone. All right.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi. Welcome to the first ever edition of the I Feel You Bro series on from Calm Collective. Tonight we'll be talking about men and mental health. Right. I see. We still have some attendees coming in. Right. So let's get started. Tonight I'm joined with Jay, Juffri, and Titus. These are guys who just gonna bro talk man to man, talk about mental health and just what it means to them. So I guess let's start it out with Jay. Maybe what is mental health to you?
Um, Mental health to me is honestly is a struggle. I feel I have been um, struggling with mental health ever since I was a child. But I do feel that it's a main, it's like one of the most important things
Mhm.
to look at for any human being. It's to have a healthy, you know, outlook
Mm,
of one's psyche.
mm,
And essentially, it's being at peace with or the sorry, my dogs are barking. I don't know why. Um, but for me, it has been a struggle to be at peace with myself,
mm,
with oneself and
yeah.
the inner world that happens with every human being.
Mm, right. Wow, that's awesome. Yeah, I'm sure there's something that all of us can relate to. To my dogs, maybe they want to
Mm.
join into this as well. Okay, so okay, let's ask the rest as well. What about what you, Titus?
Mental health, kind of along the lines of what Jay was talking about.
Mm,
I think it has a lot to do with how you feel about yourself,
mm,
um, and then also how you deal with external matters or stressors that come to you.
yeah.
I think a lot of a person's mental health is determined by how they cope, how they deal, how they think about things, how they process things. And I'm really glad to be on this panel tonight to
Mm,
talk about some of these things because I feel that, especially for men, it's not something that is often talked about.
yeah.
Or as men, we don't maybe often feel like it's something we need to talk about.
Mm,
I guess sometimes people feel like you know, you just kind of just grit your teeth and bear through it. But that's not a healthy coping mechanism. So, yeah.
mm, yeah. I mean, that's what there's misconception there, right? Like, oh, you can get through it. Oh, it's
Yeah.
just it's nothing. I'm just or
Yeah.
it's just a phase or whatever. But
Yeah. Yeah.
it's more than that. Yeah,
Right. Definitely.
yeah. What about you, Jufri?
Um, Mental health to me is something personal.
Mm,
But besides that, I think it's should be treated at the same level with any other health inside us.
mm,
So the thing that I think in Asian society, not really men, that we
mm,
are lacking is knowledge on mental health.
yeah.
Um, so we were quite deprived on the importance of it when we were younger. Maybe
Mm,
nowadays it's coming to light, which is like what you guys are doing.
mm.
So and yeah, and I'm very glad that I'm part of this panel. So yeah,
Well, we're glad to have all of you on board.
thanks,
Um,
man.
yeah, especially I think for me myself, like this is really something that is not really talked about out there like readily. It's a lot of like stigma about men and you gotta you can toughen up and stuff like that. Yeah, especially in Asian context. So as manly men, I should ask you, when was the last time you cried? Let's start with you, Titus.
You know, okay, so when you first asked this question,
Yeah.
uh, I also want to clarify that I guess that there's different kinds of crying.
Mm.
There's a crying because you're sad. There's a crying because you're happy. There's a crying because you're overwhelmed. So the question, when was the last time you cried, can be a lot of different answers for that.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you, just purely in terms of if you define crying as tears flowing from your eyes,
Mm.
I think it was maybe just a week or two ago. It was two things. One was I was at quite a high, I guess, anxiety level. Just there were a lot of things that were going on at the same time. I was trying to cope with everything. And you know, when you're pretty stressed or anxious, things easily trigger you. So I was triggered by just something I'd read, and it just made me feel so sad,
Right.
so sad. It wasn't even something that happened to me personally, but something I was reading about.
Mm.
And I just started, kind of tearing up. And that was uh, not not uncommon, but I know definitely it was a combination of just being pretty stressed out and worried about things that were happening, and then
Right.
also just reading something that was very sad.
Mm.
So I was moved to, I guess you can say I was moved to tears by something I'd read because I was just like, this is a very sad situation.
Mm.
Yeah, so that was, I guess, the last time I cried. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Well, I mean, it sounds like you're someone who's very in tune with your emotions as well. Just if it moves you, and then you express it. Is it something that you that's okay for Jay? Is it something for you, the same kind of situation for you, where it's easy for you to express yourself emotionally?
Yeah, I would say I'm very emotional, and I would just cry at
Dog.
any. Sorry about that. Yeah,
No, it's all right. It's
any
okay.
at a from an article I might have read, or
Mm.
a video that I might have watched. I try to empathize, or naturally I empathize with um, almost anything I come across.
Right.
Um, and you were asking about
Yeah.
the last time I
Yeah.
cried.
Yeah.
Well, the last time I really cried, like really with sadness,
Okay.
was because of one of my closest friends. We
Right.
were friends since uh, we were really young,
Mm.
and he feels trapped.
Right.
That his well, his dad doesn't believe in him, or he feels like his dad doesn't believe in him,
Mm.
and isn't and wants him to take up a certain job, or be in a certain industry, which I feel is not him. And
Mm.
yeah, he feels, and that's why he feels trapped, and I just felt really sad for him.
Right.
um but the saddest part is that I I, I don't think he has the courage um to step out
Mm.
of his comfort zone, or uh, perhaps feel like he
Mm.
would insult his parents by
Mm.
doing something they don't like, or
Right.
taking up a job that they don't see as worthy.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah,
Mm.
but
Wow.
I do know he feels trapped,
Yeah.
but he wants to be a good son,
Yeah. Yeah. Of course.
And so he's also kind of stuck between a place between what he really wants to do and how he wants his father to be proud of him.
Right.
It's
Okay.
really sad.
That is something that, okay, like for Asian men, right? Definitely we struggle with this. You know, there's always this whole like, you know, nuclear family and stuff like that, where, you know, you gotta respect elders, you gotta follow your parents' wishes and stuff like that. So before I get to you, Juffri, on the crying thing, I just wanna ask, um maybe I just ask you first, Juffri. Okay. Since guys in general, they just, you know, it's really hard for us to talk about emotional stuff like that. And you know, Jay just brought up something about family, right? So what is like the family dynamic for you, especially for you as a man in house?
So personally, when I grew up, when I was young, I think I've been struggling with anxiety when I was like 4 or 5, but I didn't really know what it was. So
Mm.
I don't really blame my parents or my family for not educating me in that sector because they were too like baffled about this topic. But then things happen within my family. A close family member of mine, he's diagnosed with schizophrenia. So that happened like close to 10 years ago. So when that happened, it shed some light into our family, and we started to see mental illness in a rather important spectrum. So from there, we would, invest our time to understand mental health even more. And I think that's where all of us started to gain more like the trait of empathy between one another. So I think, yeah, um, I think that tragedy was a blessing in disguise, definitely, and also it made me like stronger to move forward in terms of the importance of mental health between
Mm.
men, especially.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Wow. Okay. Well, thanks for sharing that. Well, what about you, Titus? Like, is it something that you can relate to as well?
Um, I don't think it's something that we ever talked about as a family.
Hmm.
So, um, yeah, my family doesn't really talk about mental health that much. But since kind of like with Juffri, when some of our family members uh, were diagnosed with it, um, and then I guess, you know, our own realization that, wow, if we don't have a conversation about this, we're just kind of trying to avoid something very obvious,
Oh,
right? The elephant in the room.
right. Yeah.
So I think it's unfortunate that many times conversations only happen when things happen, you know?
Oh,
We always
yeah.
wait till stuff gets
Mm,
really bad and then we start
mm,
talking about it. And that's obviously too late to be talking about something already.
yeah, for
So
sure.
yeah, it wasn't something that we talked about very much, but I'm glad we're able to have more conversations about it now as family.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow. And how did you get started on that? Like, you know, since it's something that you just naturally like as a family you don't talk about. Like, how do you personally, how would you approach it?
Yeah. So, you know, when we began to realize how uh, issues about mental health were affecting members of our family,
Hmm.
then, you know, it kind of just became impossible to not talk about it. We
Right.
just had to learn to we had to learn about it.
Oh,
And we had
okay.
to learn to
Yeah.
bring it into our dialogue and to have that become a starting point or a talking point when we're understanding people. You know, in the past,
Yeah.
someone's going through a hard time or someone is struggling with something, our terminology can be like, oh, he or she is just sad or
Mm,
upset or
mm,
just kind of he'll get over it or
mm,
something is stressing him out.
mm.
But I think when we've learned now that actually when we're talking about mental health, uh, when we use the term depressed, when we use the term anxious, it can mean different things now.
Right.
Someone can just be, you know, depressed about something, but people can also be clinically depressed or clinically anxious, and that's very different, right? We can't tell someone like that, look, just get over it, don't be so sad, or just cheer up. Those are like the worst things that you can tell somebody.
Yeah.
So these were things that we had to learn,
Right.
and I'm still learning. I think all of us have very much to learn about how to have these conversations, how to talk about them, and understand them ourselves. Yeah.
Right. Okay. Well, that's very deep into the family and right. I think for me personally also, I do struggle with that as well. I think a lot of men in Asia, we can relate to that. Just anyone in Asia can relate to that, like how there's so much stigma and misconception about it. So I guess I would like to ask Jay this, like, was it how was it easy for you to talk about like mental health to your friends or family? What are barriers and stuff like that?
It wasn't easy for me. I wasn't told that, at least I don't remember. I wasn't told that it was okay for me to share my feelings, I guess. Or I did not feel that I didn't dare to share my feelings with friends or family for the longest time. It's still difficult. I guess no one really told me it was okay. It was okay to do so, and I didn't want to feel like I was weak.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, I always felt like with how I experienced society that it's not a good trait, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
To be negative, or how some people would call it, you know, or to
It's quite
talk
tragic.
about your problems.
Yeah, it's so tragic. Like you just kind of like, oh, just sweep it in the rug. Oh no, don't. It's just being negative or stuff like that. That's not. Yeah, I would say, of course, not healthy at all. But like, how have you like progressed since then? Like, are you now? We talk a bit about like your how you're coping with mental health. So, how have you like started taking care of yourself and knowing that you can't talk to people about it?
A lot of it I express through song, so
Right.
through my music. But most of the time, now that I'm married with my wife, my lifetime partner, I trust her, you know, wholeheartedly, and she's really my pillar of support, and it's really important. I mean, it's amazing that she's there in my life and have someone there to, you know, listen to your problems and not necessarily solve them, but just be that person who listens and is there for you
that's
as
very nice.
support.
Yeah.
Moral support.
I think there's also the misconception as well. Like, people think that men should be like strong and stuff like that. So you don't need a pillar of support and stuff like that. But frankly, we do.
Yeah.
Yeah. All do. So yeah, thanks for like being transparent about it as well. Like, bring it up. So, what about you, Juffri? Like, how do you take care of your mental health?
I will start to when I really first felt like depressed, which was like almost 8 years ago, 7 years ago. So that was my mistake. So I think it's natural for us men to keep it to ourselves when we felt it. So the culture, the media, and everything around the world portrays men as being masculine, tough and rough, so you rarely see men being weak. So maybe from there, like subconsciously also affected all of us. So, and when I first started um like not talking about it, it got to me. So um I would have to say my pillar of strength would be my friends. It was really hard to open up to them. I wouldn't blame them because majority of them don't really understand.
Right.
But as it progresses, uh, we started to feel that it is important to talk about our feelings,
Uh-huh.
no matter what gender you are.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm thankful for my friends. I know it's not easy for like a man or someone to speak up. I think it takes a lot of courage, but once you do, I think it's like, because if they can just listen, they know that you're feeling this way, maybe in the future, if they are feeling that way and you are there for them. So it works as a two-way street. And besides that, like now, how I'm coping with all of this is I have a great partner, my girlfriend. She is really my strength. So she doesn't really like try to force herself to solve all my problems. No, she just like listens, and like same as Jay. The listening part is the most important trait someone could have. Should just to let our feelings out. And yeah, you will feel much better definitely if you talk to someone about it. So yeah.
Wow. Well, thanks for sharing us about it.
I want to jump in. Real quick.
Yes, please, Titus, jump in real quick.
Both Juffri and Jay have talked about how important it is to have someone that you grapple with these things about, and you feel safe to open up to. So I want to speak to maybe all those who are listening who don't have yet someone like that. Whether it's because you're single or because you don't have that kind of relationship or friendship with anybody yet. And I'm also reading some of the Q&A, and I think there are a number of questions which are talking about how do you help someone to seek help? How do you deal with maybe your own expectations of how tough you should be or how manly you should be as a man? And I just want to say that one of the first things that helped me in learning to deal with how I'm feeling is just learning how to express it. I think that's the first most important thing. So when you're having a feeling, the first thing you need to understand is what is it, right? So it helps to be able to express it, whether it is to talk about it, to write about it. Jay writes songs. You find a form of expression. And I think when you're able to express a feeling, it gets less trapped inside you. There's an outlet. And this is a start to being able to process it. And then from that point on, what has helped me, this might not be for everyone, but is I actually take some time to journal. I'll write about it, kind of talk about my own thoughts, my own feelings. So at this point, I'm not telling anybody yet, but I'm writing it down. And that's the first step, because then it goes from being within you to at least being on paper. And then if you're feeling okay, then you can take the next step of deciding that maybe now that I've written about it, I feel like I can show this to someone, or I can talk to someone about this, because you've at least gotten it out. That second step is harder because you're going from private into a little bit more public. And that can be a scary step, because I think a lot of our thoughts are like, who cares about how I'm feeling, or is anyone even going to empathize with me, or am I just being weak, or is this just a stupid problem that I should deal with on my own? And these are all thoughts that are not helpful, right? These are thoughts that do not benefit you at all. And the truth of the matter is, if you go to someone that is trusted, or if you can't find anyone that is trusted in your circle, you go to someone who's professional, they will not come to you with a a rod and beat you over the head and say, get out of this, fix yourself. But I think most people do have a heart to help, you know, and I think especially now, the conversation about mental health is so much more vibrant than it was before.
Yeah.
I think a lot more people are more well equipped and also more keen to deal with this and to help. You know, the worst feeling on earth is knowing that someone has struggled with something all along and you never knew about it.
Mm.
And sometimes I just want to be like, how come you didn't tell me about it? Or at any point you could have reached out to me about it. And that can be one of the worst feelings, you know, as someone, you know, on the other end of it. So anyway, you know, this is going all over the place, but I think the main thing I wanted to say was, number one, find an outlet to express it, right? Whether it is your partner, like Juffri and Jay were sharing about, or whether it is just a creative form of expression, or for me, it's journaling.
Yeah.
And then the second thing is to, in whatever way you're able to, just take that first step, whatever it may be and however small it may be, just take that first step to start. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Thanks for sharing and bringing that up, cause, well, I personally think that I do journaling as well, so I personally do know that the importance of, like, just writing it down and actually being aware of, like, what you're thinking and what you're going through. So yeah, thanks for bringing it up. I think that's before we go to Q&A. I do have to ask the other two guys as well about, like, what advice can you give to someone who's afraid to ask for help for mental health? Maybe we'll start with Juffri.
So the advice that I would give to those that who are afraid to speak up about it, open up, is to channel their feelings or emotions into something that they like. For example, or pick up a new hobby. Personally, I feel that doing sports or exercising really help with your mental health. I used to be a non-believer in exercising. I used to like sloth in my bed and just like I let my emotions feed me until I sleep. But I picked up cycling a few years back, and I mean, I'm not a pro cyclist, so I just like cycle around my neighborhood. And the first few times it was tough because cycling is tough on your legs.
Yeah.
But it's definitely a good one for your mind, because I still remember vividly that every time I cycle, I would just get home and I would just after I shower and just lie down, and my mind is just so free. And I've never felt that that feeling for a very long time. So I was like started talking to a few of my friends who does like exercise a lot, and did some research and saying that exercising really does help. Maybe not cycling to those who are who are not keen on cycling. Maybe you can. I mean, I know running is tough. Yeah, not a lot of people like to run, so maybe find like other sports. Yeah.
But any
so
kind
I
of
think
sport, right? You like
anything that works your I'm not a scientist, but the chemicals inside you, endorphins or something that can get you. Yeah. So that was the one that because there are days where we feel that we don't feel like talking to anyone. Definitely we have those days, so we want to have our own time, so maybe that's like doing sports or and I also agree with you, Luqman and Titus, journaling. I don't journal anymore, but I used to. So as Titus mentioned, having your feelings or emotions in you and then channeling out on a paper, it really gets it out of you somehow. So I think that's one of the important things that you can do as well. Yeah.
Fantastic. Wow. Okay, journaling again. So Jay, we know you express through song. So what advice then would you give someone?
So, I mean, that's just my way of expressing my feelings. But just like Titus mentioned, finding a creative outlet to express yourself is definitely helpful, really helpful. Even just taking the first most importantly, taking the first step, however small that may be. And as Juffri mentioned, with sports, that is also a way, that can also be a way to express yourself, or let out that pent up energy, you know? Because mostly when you do feel a negative way, exercising can help you release tension, including that negative energy, I believe. What I also want to say is that please, everyone should try meditating.
Wow.
I don't, not in the traditional sense of like you, or stereotypically where you close your eyes and you sit, sit on your own, cross-legged for like an hour or something like that. You don't have to do that. It can be, meditation can also be in other forms like walking. So one thing that, one exercise that I like to do, or I'm starting to, is that I'd go to like botanic gardens, right, or the park, and just walk.
Yeah.
And be around nature, because it is also proven that like being around nature can help you relax.
Yeah.
Calms you down a little bit. You know, it's just natural. It's a natural thing. So, and when you walk, naturally, I do find it's a kind of like a form of meditation. It's meditative, and it's therapeutic. And writing song, and for me, as well as just walking, has been a great help.
Wow. Okay. Thanks for sharing us. Meditation, but walking. Wow, this
takes your mind off.
Yeah.
Of things, even if it's just for half an hour or something. And with Juffri, like exercising, right? That also gives your mind kind of like a break, you know, on the reality of things. And it's important to give yourself a break, give your mind a break of thinking too much sometimes.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's a good point. Yeah. Yeah, and the brain is a muscle as well, so you do need to take some rest. You do need to take a break, stuff like that. So use the other muscles while you're exercising.
Right.
Less of the brain, yeah, while you're doing it. All right. So actually, we have a wow, we have a lot of questions. So let's dive in. Okay. See, I see some very interesting ones. So like so there's this one question about like, do you think that difficulties talking about vulnerable emotions come more from expectations of oneself or anticipated reactions from others? Example, how others might react to a guy versus girl expressing vulnerable emotions. Wow. Okay. So let's go with you, Juffri. Let's maybe talk about that, or anyone who wants to answer it. Actually.
Okay. Let me reread the question again.
Yeah.
Which one was it?
So this one. Do you think that difficulties talking about vulnerable emotions come from expectations of oneself? Yeah.
Yeah. Again, back to how culture, see men as who they are. So definitely there is a difference when it comes to people reacting to a girl's emotion versus a guy. You know, people will take like sympathy and empathize more towards the girls because they seem vulnerable compared to a man, you know, who can really just like, oh, this guy went to NS, so maybe he can just, let's like just let it be. So whatever that we're trying to do today in this panel is trying to break that, that barrier, that show that we are also vulnerable. as much as girls. So we are all the same, definitely. We may look like we may look different, but nobody can see what's inside of us. So definitely, to answer that question, which is the difficulties to talk about emotions. I think slowly we are getting there, especially for men. It will take time. Definitely, it will take years, or maybe maybe it can come in the next few years. But hopefully, I will see that more men are gonna talk about their emotions more, sharing with each one another, and that's where we all feel confident to talk about it. So yeah.
That's why we're starting this, right?
Yeah. So that's why we are here. So really good, kind of.
Yeah. Anything to add? The rest, maybe Titus, you anything to add here?
Okay, I'm just gonna jump in and say this, which is there is a very toxic image of men that they shouldn't talk about their emotions, or even when they do, it's very superficial and surface level. And anyone who's seen like talking a lot about how they feel, expressing a lot about how they feel, is kind of just like dismissed. I see that happen from like very early on. So that's sad. So, yeah, I don't really know how to deal with it. You know, in the question, it was about whether the perceptions come from or whether the struggle comes from the perception of how a guy or a girl should be feeling. So that perception is, it's very real in the sense that it exists in society, but it's also something that we need to learn to actively fight against. So I've shared this with some people, but as someone who works with young children, and I'm a guy, and I'm, fairly tall, quite large size, I have a deep voice. So it's like a lot of the strong male traits that you would see, right? But at the same time, I'm not afraid to tell the children that I work with that when I'm sad, I cry. When I'm happy, I laugh. When I love something or someone, I say it, And so the kids think it's hilarious that when I love something, I openly and loudly declare my love. Or when I'm sad, I'll cry. But I feel like this is part of kind of breaking that stereotype and realizing that there should not be this view of that men cannot be vulnerable, because men are not only as vulnerable as women, but I think in fact more, because of just how toxic this view of how guys should be is. So I do everything in my power, just in my own little field of influence, to really try and break that as much as possible, So things like this, a panel like this, talk about stuff like this. And even the first question about asking us, when's the last time you cried? That's a very, if you really go into it, that's a very vulnerable question to ask a guy, when was the last time you cried? Because it's not something that guys talk about, right?
Yeah.
But I think it's so necessary. Yeah.
Titus, I just wanted to say like this: do you agree? Like we can learn so much from children.
Oh,
they just express themselves like they're honest.
Yeah.
And that's, I feel, as most of us adults have lost the honesty, honest in being with ourselves.
Yeah.
Yes.
No, absolutely.
Because of society.
Yeah.
So I guess like Titus also bring up a point where I think a question is asked here, like how can we break the stereotype, right? How can we change the cultural perception? And I think you starting young by being the role model itself is fantastic. Do the others want to chip in as well? Like how do you think we can break this cultural stigma? You know, maybe Jay, you got anything?
Well, I believe, every one of us can make a difference, both guys and girls. Simply asking, checking in on your friends and coming from a place of, being genuine. And how about a friend recently told me this, like this thing called the no judge zone.
Oh.
And you would just like, yeah, when you're speaking to a friend or family member, you'd be like, okay, it's can we do a no judge zone,
Nice.
Can we do that now? And that would mean that, simply you listen to the other party and you don't judge that person for however long that conversation may be. And I thought that was really cool because a lot of us are afraid to just pour out our emotions and be vulnerable because you're afraid of getting judged and being dismissed. And so if we could just practice like the no judge zone, for example, that would be a really cool thing. It could be
Wow.
it could be a cool thing to do. I don't know.
Yeah. Can I kind of like copy that a bit, like, and put it in part of the show? So we'd be like,
Yeah.
okay, no judge zone, come,
Let's do it.
Just bro to bro talk. Let's
Go
do
for it.
All right. So I think we've only got time for one more question. So this is, well, all the questions are very interesting. One from Larry here. Asked about like work environments. So it's very hard to be vulnerable in social situations. How would you open up to your colleagues, bosses, or even HR, especially Asian companies? Yeah. So any of you guys can relate to that? You want to open that? You want to, Titus, any insight on
will
that?
start
Oh,
first.
Juffri?
Okay.
Cool.
I think what I like what made me conscious about myself was when we want to apply for a job, and then there will be like a list of things that you need to declare. And one of the points is that no mental or physical disabilities, So when that happens, right, I will usually like think twice because I personally am diagnosed. Okay, I'm clinically diagnosed. So, but that was like maybe a few years back. And I think mental health discrimination is slowly getting like ticked off from work. From like workplaces in Singapore. But definitely majority of it is still, because we are Asian and so we haven't really fully accepted how mental health actually is like any other illnesses out there. So how do you like? I mean, I get it. Like personally, if I feel vulnerable at a point of time at work, I would feel that opening up to colleagues or like your bosses might be a challenge, because maybe to me because they are not like trusting you on a personal note compared to your friends and families. I think.
Oh, they feel because you're a bit more untrustworthy because you have.
Because they see you as a professional, and I mean, at a work, we are all deemed to be professional at a point of time, and but having said that, I hope that I've read or I've seen some like countries having like their HR talking about mental health openly with their colleagues, and I hope to see that happen in Singapore. To everyone, like I think it's a very important trait to have in workplaces in Singapore. I mean, our
Yeah.
culture here is already so stressful. So yeah, I hope that answers it.
Well, thanks for your very honest and open answer. I think what I do know is that some companies also removing that check about the mental health thing. And I
Yeah,
think all companies should not have that in the first place.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. So
just
I think it's a good
discrimination.
thing. Yeah, it's good initiative for companies to do that.
Yeah, fantastic. Okay, so actually, that's all the time we have actually. So yeah, I would like to thank all the viewers who are viewing right now for sitting down and listen to us talk about mental health, men and mental health. And I would like to thank our guests, Jay, Titus, and Juffri, to open up like really heart to heart, bro to bro talk here. Wow, it's like wow, fantastic.
It's awesome.
It's about time we do this, right? Yeah. Okay. And I hope everyone can just spread this kind of like positivity around. And if you know any bro who's like down or whatever, just like just be there for them, and be patient as well. And do know that we are all here and we all want to help, and yeah, we're all in this together. All right. For those who are watching, we will be back for the next I Feel You Bro in probably in October. We do have some events coming next month, so just be in touch, and yeah, just follow us on our social and everything, and then just join us for the next event. All right, thanks everyone again.
Thank you.
Thanks guys for tuning in.
Bye.
Take care.
Yeah.